Hello, this is Dr. Road from Mobilent. Please note that this is a highly subjective and personal opinion, so take it lightly as a reference only. Recently, the trend in road bike fitting has been shifting toward using shorter crank arms. After years of using 170mm crank arms, I decided to switch to 165mm crank arms. I'm the type of rider who focuses solely on the riding experience itself, so I don't usually use cadence sensors, heart rate monitors, or other measurement tools. Because of this, my observations might not be entirely accurate. Please bear with me. Back when my cardiovascular endurance was at its peak, my heart rate gradually dropped to the point of reaching bradycardia, often seen in athletes. The heart gets bigger and the heart rate slows down. I used to adhere to the high cadence style popularized by Lance Armstrong, and I've rarely met anyone who pedals faster than I do. From this time on, cadence running became popular. Of course, I'm fully aware that there are many excellent cyclists out there, so don't misunderstand me as claiming to be particularly fast. Just a tourist rider. The measurements can vary depending on factors such as wind, road conditions, or the rider's physical condition on a given day. Accurate measurement is likely impossible unless conducted in a fitting center. Now, onto my first impressions of riding with the new crank arms. The most noticeable change was in muscle engagement. The cranks felt significantly heavier to turn at the same cadence, requiring more strength. The gluteus maximus, responsible for hip drive, was particularly stimulated, resulting in noticeable soreness. My quadriceps also experienced increased load, while the hamstrings didn't seem to be affected much. Later research confirmed that shorter crank arms indeed reduce hamstring load. I also noticed that the relaxed pedaling sensation decreased and the tempo became quicker. Further research suggested that shorter cranks could lead to slightly more calf fatigue, although it didn't seem significant in my case. The shorter power stroke also sped up my dancing tempo. One unexpected change was the impact on my core, particularly the erector spinae muscles in my lower back. My calves weren't sore. These muscles fatigued much faster and were used more than before. Since I didn't adjust the stem height to compensate for the increased saddle height, my abdominal muscles also experienced slightly greater strain. Overall, it was clear that the new setup required more energy to ride. Regarding saddle height, this is a personal observation, but I experienced slight discomfort in the iliotibial band on the outer side of my knee. Raising the saddle height by 1 centimeter, more than the 5 millimeters suggested by the crank length difference, resolved the discomfort and felt much more comfortable. I'm now considering raising it another 5 millimeters. With a higher saddle, my knees don't come up as much, making my currently larger belly feel more comfortable. The increased saddle height also resulted in a more aggressive forward position. While this may improve aerodynamics, raising the stem alongside the saddle could be the better choice for a more comfortable ride. By my second ride, 3 days later, my muscles had started to adapt, making pedaling feel a bit easier. By the third ride, another 3 days later, my muscles had mostly adjusted, but the erector spinae, connected to my glutes, still felt quite fatigued. I think additional exercises like deadlifts, back extensions, bridges, or Superman exercises will be necessary to strengthen these areas. Now for some other observations. During sprints, I felt noticeably slower and less responsive. It might simply be a disruption to my previous rhythm, but pushing the pedals during sprints felt harder than before. It's not so much about lacking strength, but more about the cranks feeling less natural to push. For riders who enjoy solo rides and frequent sprints, shorter crank arms might not be the best choice. As they say, you gain something and lose something. In conclusion, if you experience discomfort in your hips or knees, switching to shorter crank arms could be a good solution. Shorter crank arms also seem better suited for riders aiming to cover longer distances more efficiently. If you decide to go shorter, choosing a crank arm length 5 millimeters shorter than your current setup is generally recommended. For riders up to 178 centimeters tall, 165 millimeter cranks should be suitable. However, for short distance sprints, longer crank arms still seem to perform better. That wraps it up for today. This was Dr. Road from Mobilent. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps us create more content. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and remember, building more strength may be necessary to make full use of shorter crank arms. These crank arms are closer to the level used by track athletes.